Northern Pakistan is a land of multiple rivers, mountains higher than most, deserts in a cold climate, restaurants where you wouldn't imagine them, and people with hearts of gold. We left Islamabad for one of the world's most epic road journeys, a trip on the Karakoram highway. We passed Taxila, Abbotabad, Besham City, Chilas, Gilgit and the stunning Hunza Valley. On the way back down to Islamabad, we visited the wonderful Skoda Valley, Shigar, and took the 4,000-metre high Babusar Pass back down to Pakistan's capital. Having left Islamabad, we visited the ancient Buddhist ruins at Taxila, the oldest of which date back to the 6th century BC. We then ate some delicious chicken karahi at a roadside restaurant, before driving further north, through Abbotabad, the city where Osama bin Laden was supposedly killed.
So right now we are in a place called Abbotabad, which is in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and this is the place where Osama bin Laden lived for a while, and the building's been demolished, but this is where the Americans took him out. So yeah, it's quite a quiet place, there's not many people around, farmland really. The houses around are quite big, so I assume he was living in a very similar house to one of these, but it's quite a big compound, I suppose.
Interesting to note that many locals don't believe that he was ever here. Moving on, our journey further north took us through some spectacular scenery. We followed the Indus River, a river famous for ancient civilization. Hence, we found these fantastic rock carvings called Diamer, the oldest of which is said to have been from the 8th millennium BC. That's 10,000 years ago. This was also when we began to see some of Pakistan's most magnificent truck art. One of these trucks wasn't so lucky though.
So right now we are in Gilgit Baltistan province, in the far north of Pakistan, and we've just visited, well we spent last night in Gilgit, which is the capital of this area. Now we just went to see this beautiful old Buddha carved into the rock. And we're not sure how old it is exactly because there wasn't any information saying that, but it must be pretty old because Pakistan hasn't been Buddhist for a long time. But right now we're just about to go fishing next to this beautiful, stunning river, and then we're going to drive off to Hunza Valley. So.
Our fishing trip happened because of this wonderful man. He invited 2 wandering foreigners to go fishing with him, me and my mum. All of a sudden, he said, "Wait here," and we couldn't go anywhere because we had his fishing rod. He came back 20 minutes later with wonderful fish cooked for us to eat. There are very few places I've been with people of such generosity. After leaving, we drove to Karimabad in Hunza Valley. We were greeted with this beautiful scenery as we drove into the valley. The mood in Karimabad was that of joy. People were friendly, liberal, and the scenic background simply completed the ambience of peace and tranquility. After walking through the village, we visited the 2 famous forts of Alta and Balti, both built between the 8th and 11th centuries. Although the forts supposedly fell into disrepair after abandonment, the Aga Khan Foundation has spent money turning them into museums today. Speaking of Aga Khan, the majority of people inhabiting this region are Nizari Muslims, a branch within Shia Islam. These people believe Aga Khan IV, a billionaire with British citizenship, to be their imam, or religious leader of their community. After having finished exploring these forts, we hiked up to a place called the Eagle's Nest, which had these beautiful views of the valley below. The following day was spent driving up to Pasu, near the Chinese border. On the way there, we visited this lake, Attabad Lake. The Karakoram highway used to run where this lake now lies, until 2010, when a massive landslide formed this lake, engulfing villages and killing locals. For a while, the only way to travel this part of the Karakoram highway was like this, by boat. But now, the Chinese have blasted tunnels through the mountains, making the road drivable again. And it is very clear that the Chinese were the ones that made this happen.
So right now we are in a place called Sourced, which is the last town in northern Pakistan, or last town of any size in northern Pakistan before the Chinese border, which is to the north down this road. There's a lot of Chinese trucks here, and even the people here look quite Asian. this bus right here is heading to China. But yeah, there's a few people around, but it's not too busy. It's quite a quiet place in general. But the scenery around is stunning, just like everywhere in northern Pakistan really.
On the way back to Karimabad, we visited Husseini Bridge, which is the starting point of a hike to Zarabad village. My mum was quite scared crossing the bridge, but she did manage it. Here are some more intimidating pictures of the same bridge. And this is a local man from Husseini village that I met beside the bridge. We spent the next day exploring Nagar Valley, which for me felt like the most beautiful part of our entire trip. It was only a 90-minute drive from Karimabad, and it was surely worth it. On the way, we pulled up at this village so that our guide could pray at the mosque, and locals soon became intrigued by our presence. They invited us for food with them, and when it became clear that we didn't have time, they gave us some meat and rice to take away with us. Super friendly. We then continued on until we reached the Hopar Glacier, which we hiked down onto. I also met a super friendly local trekking guide called Mohammed, who generously walked us around the area.
So we're on the Hopar Glacier right now, and I think this is the first time I've ever actually just stood on a glacier, but it's really beautiful. I don't know if you can see, but the top of the glacier is over there. Apparently that takes like a day to hike there and back, and there's other like really beautiful hikes in this area. So there's one 5-day hike which goes to a place called, what's the lake called again? The lake, Wash Lake. Wash Lake, yeah, it goes to a place called Wash Lake.
We then drove back to Karimabad fairly early, in order to prepare for tomorrow's long drive to Skoda. We admired the stunning views of Nagar Valley on the way back.
Sorry.
Selfie!
This was to be our last night in Karimabad, and we were surely sad to leave. The drive to Skoda was extremely long, and ended up taking us roughly 11 hours. The mountains were beautiful, but the roads... well, this is what they looked like. However, they didn't feel as bad as they looked. On top of that, we passed some very interesting looking villages and people.
So this is the view from Skoda's main fort. Below there is Skoda city. It's not really a city, it's more like a big town, but it's very beautiful here. The surrounding mountains, I think, are even more beautiful than the Hunza Valley. In order to get up to this fort, we actually had to trek on quite steep paths next to a big drop. To be honest, that's pretty much the route. You can see it from here, but it's well worth it because it's an absolutely stunning view. Over there you can see the Indus River in the background, and there's a few islands in there, but you can't actually see from this video. So on the road between Skoda and Shigar, there's a beautiful sandy desert absolutely in the middle of the mountains, and we've just parked the car on the side of the road and just decided to walk up a sand dune, and we've just found this absolutely stunning view.
After visiting the wonderful cold desert en route to Shigar, we arrived in the town just in time for a polo match, a popular pastime in northern Pakistan. We spent the rest of the day wandering through Shigar town, visiting beautiful old mosques and getting followed by curious children. We spent the following day hiking in the mountains behind Shigar with this trekking guide, Rizwan. We also walked through the nearby countryside and found some old Buddhist carvings in the rock. The following 2 days were spent driving back down to Islamabad, after our flight from Skoda was cancelled due to poor weather. Although this was initially disappointing, it ended up being an adventure, as we were able to traverse the Babusar Pass and see the mountain towns of Naran and Kaghan, which we had not seen on the way up.
So currently we've just stopped and taken a break whilst driving on the road between Chilas and Naran, and the scenery is absolutely different to what we've had before. While previously we had very arid mountains, it's now changed to very green. And on the way we traversed a pass called the Babusar Pass, which was extremely high. It went up to 4,145 meters, I think. And unfortunately the weather wasn't fantastic up there, so we didn't have the best view. But it was still quite an experience. It was really good. Yeah, so after having lunch here, we're going to drive on to Naran and finally have the long 7-hour drive to Islamabad.
The road was very scenic, and it was the perfect way to end our adventure in northern Pakistan. After one day exploring the city of Islamabad, we flew to Urumqi in western China, and our adventure in Pakistan was over. Oh, and one more thing. If you ever get the chance, do visit Pakistan. It's a country full of wonderful scenery, history, deep-rooted culture, and most of all, wonderful people. On top of that, the majority of the country is safe to visit. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and check out my travel blog at www.travellingtheunknown.com.